Good afternoon. We are back at BTC Prague live streaming The Starting Block, which is the block's new daily live show. And I'm joined this morning for the opening session of our broadcast with Ben Workman. He is the Chief Investment Officer at Strive, which of course you will know as one of the hottest Bitcoin treasury companies out there, just behind Saylor and MicroStrategy. Ben, it's a great pleasure to meet you and talk to you about Bitcoin treasury companies. It's been an interesting week. Last week, Saylor sold 32 Bitcoin. This week, Strive bought those 32 Bitcoin. I mean, that's the running joke. But tell us a little bit about the buy of 32 Bitcoin this week, and I guess it was a bit of a symbol, and the thinking behind it.
Yeah, it really was more of a symbol than anything. I think the market was very sensitive at the time when Strategy sold the Bitcoin, and any time that you see a pivot happen, people are going to be nervous about it. And, for us, we've been in the market buying a lot of Bitcoin recently. We had a 2,500 Bitcoin buy, just the week before that. And so the next week, we thought it would be fun to, go buy the 32 Bitcoin that Strategy sold. And, you saw Matt and Saylor, they were on a panel here in Prague together just the other day where Michael told Matt he's going to want those 32 Bitcoin back. But, price is going to be a lot higher before he's going to be able to get those Bitcoin back. But,
yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. When you look at what Strategy was doing, they're operating a business, right? And there's a long road in front of them of what they're trying to accomplish. So if you think of things like trying to take a Bitcoin company and get it included in the S&P 500 or to get ratings from rating agencies, the one thing that we have to solve as an industry is we need to get those rating agencies to view Bitcoin as a non-zero value asset.
Yeah.
Right now, with the rating that they gave Strategy, which is effectively a junk bond rating, what they're doing is they're marking down the value of the Bitcoin on their balance sheet to zero.
Yeah.
And so the 32 Bitcoin sale was actually strategic. People saw the talking point about inoculating the market. What he really means by that is you need to show everybody else that's out there watching that Bitcoin has value, that it's a liquid market, that you can access that value at any moment in time. And it's important when you have a company with dividend obligations. People always ask, well, how would they pay the dividends? Well, it's a carry trade against the price performance of Bitcoin over time. And so they need to prove to the market that if the conditions were right, they are willing to sell Bitcoin in order to pay those dividends.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, they need to show the market that the market is deep enough and liquid enough for them to be able to sell the Bitcoin and capture that value. People always forget, Bitcoin trades $35 billion a day in the spot market. So, it's one of the most liquid markets you could possibly be participating in. So a 32 Bitcoin sale, while everyone was trying to attribute the drawdown in the market right after that to Saylor spooking it, it was not going to make a dent in Bitcoin's overall trading, right? Bitcoin doesn't care if Saylor sells 32 Bitcoin, but he got swept up in the broader market. It amplified the narrative, but it was very strategic to try to get the regulators, to try to get the broader market to see this is an asset. It holds a lot of value. We can transact in it at any time that we need to. We're going to prove to the market that we can, and that's really what they were pursuing.
And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it was 0.0 something % of Strategy's total Bitcoin holding. So
we always say it rounds to 0.00% of their Bitcoin, right? I think the actual 0.004.
Yeah.
But it was a nothing sale. It was purely symbolic. It's to show that you can, and then they came back and they bought more than 1,500 the next week. So.
Yeah. I think it was interesting just to see different critiques online and people sort of asking asking Saylor yesterday, and one of my good friends, a journalist spoke to him yesterday and asked him, you've kind of said multiple times, never sell your Bitcoin. And Saylor had said to him, well, I never said we'd never sell Bitcoin. I said you should never sell Bitcoin, but as you say, they're running a business. But, were you surprised that, as one of the competitors in the space, once they had their investor call where they kind of said, listen, at some stage we might have to sell some Bitcoin, were you just anticipating that there is going to come a point in time where they're going to sell Bitcoin rather than dilute MSTR shares to keep paying the dividend?
Yeah, we always expected it. I actually expected it to be a much bigger sale than what it was. But, we face the same issues. We're also a public company in the United States, right? We're an issuer of digital credit. We've got dividend obligations as well. And we've been very clear from the very beginning of this that if the conditions were right, we would sell the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that is something that as a corporation, if you're running one of these strategies, it always has to be an option.
Yes.
right? You can't build a balance sheet on a single asset and say, we're never willing to use that asset, because if that's what you're telling everyone, they view it as a $0 asset. If you can't utilize it, it has no value. That's the way the market sees it.
Yeah.
And so we were always expecting this to come, right? We've seen the push they've made with the regulators. They want to be able to get ratings on the perpetual preferred products later down the road. And so you have to take incremental steps along the way to prove the thesis, to prove the model, and to prove that you selling a little Bitcoin is not a systemic risk to that entire asset class.
Yeah.
Because the regulators are years behind on Bitcoin still. Right?
Yeah.
They're open to it. They'll have discussions. We've talked to, credit rating agencies. We talk to regulators as well. But they're behind, right? They haven't caught up to just how mainstream of an asset Bitcoin is, even though, it's been bouncing in and out of the top 10 assets by market cap in the world.
Yeah.
Right? It's here to stay. Companies are adopting it. Individuals have been using it forever. Nations are using it, right? It's not a fringe speculative asset anymore, right? It's arrived. Companies are finding ways to use it. They're finding ways to deliver value in the market.
Yeah.
And in order to push that forward, we need to continue to prove how resilient Bitcoin is as an asset class out there.
Yeah, for sure. I had lots of conversations with my former colleague, Robert Baggs, and we were constantly talking about, at what point do Bitcoin treasury companies sell some Bitcoin, and is it going to nuke the market? But it's happened now. And Saylor and Strategy weren't the first to do it. I think David Bailey and Nakamoto were actually the first Bitcoin treasury company to actually sell some Bitcoin a few months ago already. I think 2 or 3 months ago. So it's happened. And it didn't nuke the market. That's not the reason why Bitcoin's trading at $60,000.
Yeah, there's been several instances. I think that the biggest thing you want to focus on when you're running one of these companies is not becoming a forced seller.
Yes.
Right? There might be strategic reasons why you may sell some Bitcoin, as you just saw with Strategy. What you don't want to do is be forced into it. And I think that's what the market's really reacting to, and why there's been so much weakness in the treasury space, is if you rewind back to last summer when most of these companies were emerging, and capital was freely flowing, and the one thing that was readily available to all of them was convertible bonds.
Yes.
And with convertible bonds, what was happening is if the money comes to you easy, it always comes with strings attached, right? There's going to be provisions in there. You're going to have collateral obligations, coverage obligations. And so when you take that money near the peak of the market, and then the market immediately starts drawing down on you and cuts in half 50%, if you had a 2 times collateral coverage covenant in that convertible bond, you effectively become a forced seller, because now you have to right size that loan, right?
Yes.
You need to continue to maintain compliance. And I think a lot of people didn't recognize that as being a real risk, right? At the time, Bitcoin was flying, everyone was excited, you were hearing all the narratives, the cycle's dead, this time's different. And then it turned out it wasn't all that different. And we immediately went into a standard drawdown that we've seen in Bitcoin 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And a lot of these companies kind of got caught flat-footed because they went through one transaction and then their balance sheet was completely tied up, and it doesn't leave them any room to operate anymore. And it was one of the reasons why for Strive, we were one of the only ones that didn't take any convertible bonds. We were an equity-only raise. And that's the reason you've been able to see us continue to progress throughout the entire bear market. We've been a public company now for just 9 months. It feels like years, right? Bitcoin moves fast, but it's only been 9 months. If you rewind 9 months ago, we had 0 Bitcoin. Today, we've got 19,032 Bitcoin. And in the time that from when we went public to now, we were the first company to do an acquisition. We did M&A in this space. We acquired Semler Scientific, which was the second public Bitcoin company in the United States. We did the IPO for SATA, so we were the second issuer of a perpetual preferred equity.
Yeah.
We did a follow-on to SATA to raise the size of it, right? And now you just saw that we're going to become the first company in history to pay a daily dividend, right?
Yeah.
So we've been very active. You heard the saying, bears are for building.
Yeah.
That's something we take to heart, and we're pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish during that time.
It's been great. I was just going to say to you, I'm sorry that we've just spoken about, strategy for 10, 15 minutes, because we should be speaking about Strive. And this is something that Jack Mallers said to us yesterday on the live stream, was that he had some doubts in his mind in the way that Saylor and Strategy have evolved their product offerings and what they have now, and that it's a very complicated capital stack, essentially. And he's now in this kind of precarious position where in order to keep paying the dividend for STRC and keep it trading at par at $100, you have to either raise the interest rate or sell some Bitcoin or dilute MSTR shares. And it's always this constant balancing act. And You guys, on the other hand, have avoided the convertible notes, gone the equity route, and it seems like it's way more sustainable and just less risky. Maybe you can talk a little bit about you're the CIO, right? So I'm sure that you probably thought about this long and hard and drove the direction of why you went this way and didn't completely take from Saylor's playbook. What was your approach?
There's a major benefit to not being first. You know,
Yes.
for Saylor, Saylor had to prove out an entire new market and an entire new model. So what you see in their capital structure is a progression over time, right? The first capital that was readily available to them was the convertible bond market. And the reason is the convertible bond market loves volatility, but they don't often get a lot of it. Most of the companies where you're buying the corporate bonds from, the stocks aren't all that volatile, so the convertible bond arbitrageurs can't trade a lot. So that was a market that was readily available to them. You saw them scale in that market. They were the largest issuer of convertible bonds a couple of years ago. And so they had huge success there. But they saw that there was weakness in the convertible bonds because what you do always have out in the future is a maturity date, right? The principal of those bonds comes due.
Yeah.
And that poses a risk in the market because what you're really looking at is where do you think Bitcoin's going to be in that cycle when those bonds start maturing? Even today, you know, the bonds are such a small part of their capital structure, but it still gets a lot of attention that a lot of the bonds at the moment would not be equitizable. They're out of the money at the moment.
Yeah.
And so it gives the market an anchor point out in the future where they see a risk, right? As small as it may be, right? Retiring these bonds is less than 1 week's capital raise for a lot of standard strategy weeks, and I think people forget that. But it gives you a risk, right?
Yes.
It shows that there is a point where you could become a forced seller if the market wasn't behaving, if they got cut out of the capital markets at the time, they might become a larger forced seller of Bitcoin. That's what people really anchor to, no matter how small that opportunity really is. And so for us, we had the benefit of watching them evolve their entire capital structure up to this point.
Yeah.
And we could see where the demand was, right? We knew the downfalls that came with the convertible bond markets. We'd watch that play out. But we got to watch them evolve the perpetual preferred market as well, right?
Yeah.
Stretch was not the first product that they put out there. And part of that reason is they had to take the same approach of maturing a market. So the first one you saw them release was Strike. It was the convertible version. Well, there was a reason for that. It was because the convertible guys already understood the model. They were in it with the bonds. They would be buyers of the perpetual preferred as well. So that was an easy market to slowly move into perpetual preferreds.
Yeah.
Then they went with the fixed rate, and then eventually they got to the variable rate with Stretch,
Yes.
where they said, you know, and a lot of people have attached onto this, where they said they were trying to create an instrument that was like a money market fund, right?
Yeah.
And what they mean when they say that is you're trying to do everything in your power to create a stable instrument, right? These are traded equities in the market, so volatility comes with any traded equities. What you're trying to do is put the structure in place to allow it to trade as close to your target as possible, which is $100.
Yeah.
And so they've got tools in their arsenal to do that. But what we saw the demand. It was their largest IPO by a long shot, right? The capital that was available for the variable rate preferred was far greater than any of the others. We also got to watch it trade in the market for several months after they got through the IPO. And it was highly liquid.
Yeah.
If you look at it today, it's probably 20 times more liquid than any of their other perpetual preferred instruments, which just tells you that is what the market wants. That is the product that the market is looking for. And so we got to take all those learnings and craft our capital structure accordingly. You know, we wanted to stay very simple because we think anytime you have to explain several layers of a capital structure out there in the market, it can be confusing to investors. You know, a lot of them have been getting a PhD in finance just by watching what Strategy's done. I would bet you that most investors have never gone as deep in the capital structure of any other investment they've held as they've had with Strategy. So it's been a really interesting learning place for a lot of people. But what we decided was we wanted to be simple. We wanted a two-product story, something where we could tell investors, we've got one product which is going to be an amplified version of Bitcoin's volatility, right? And that's our common equity in ASST. That's the one that's amplified to Bitcoin. We're about 60% amplified to Bitcoin right now. It moves greater than the Bitcoin moves, right? That is a volatility product.
Yes.
And it's meant, if you're a long-term investor, to potentially outperform Bitcoin over a long time horizon. But the other people that like that are people that are traders who are trading volatility. It's a very attractive instrument for them because it's also a very liquid market. We trade $75 to $80 million a day in ASST, so it's very liquid and they can take positions in size. The other one is on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. It's where we're trying to flatten the volatility as best as we can. And that's a part of the move in going to the daily dividends.
Yeah.
Even monthly dividends wasn't enough to bring volatility down enough. Right?
Why?
We saw these things move from that $100 mark, and it was usually concentrated around the point in time where it was economically beneficial to hold those products.
Yes.
What a lot of people don't recognize about them is that there's a record date right now. That happens one time a month, and that is the date you need to be holding the security to get the dividend.
Yes.
So for the rest of that month period, you don't technically need to be holding the security, right? The payment is not tied to the full period of holding the security. It's tied to holding it on that individual date. So while the dividends were paid more frequently, it wasn't frequent enough to make it economically beneficial to hold it for a long period of time. That introduces people that are arbitragers. They like to take advantage of those dates. They'll trade in, try to get the dividend, they'll get out, they'll try to buy it at a discount. Right, that activity happened, and you saw it because the volumes were 3 to 4 times what the average daily would be around the 2 days around the record date. So for us, the move to daily dividends totally changes that dynamic.
Yeah.
Every day is a record date. Every day is a payment date. Every day is a next dividend date.
Nice.
It removes that ability or that desire for arbitragers because it's economically beneficial for investors to hold that security every single day.
Yeah.
Because if they're holding it the day before, they're getting paid the very next business day. And we think that's going to be a massive leap forward in stabilizing volatility on this product and bringing the market, that end state product we've all been talking about here for so long.
Thank you for explaining that, because now I have my head around that properly. Do you anticipate that some of the other companies are going to follow suit and move to like a daily dividend payout, maybe even STRC if Saylor thinks that you guys have got hit the nail on the head and remove some of the volatility in the actual price of STRC?
Absolutely. But I think it'll take time.
Yeah.
This is novel. Right? This has never been done before, and up until recently, everyone thought it couldn't be done.
Yeah.
Including strategy. They went out and said if they could have gone to daily, they would have done that. They didn't think that they could. And so, it was a big moment when we were able to get that through. And I think for a lot of other companies, they'll watch for a little while, right? Because there's a structure you have to put in place operationally with these. You've got to be very close, with NASDAQ, with the DTCC, with your transfer agents. Everyone's got to be coordinated in order to pay these daily dividends. And so I think for a lot of them, they'll be content to watch this model mature, including strategy, right? They're moving to twice a month payments on stretch, and I think they'll let that settle for a while. They'll observe what we're doing, and then eventually, if it turns out that the market really loves that it does greatly improve the volatility profile of the instrument, I don't see why ultimately they wouldn't end up pursuing that, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah. So how confident are you that a lot of these treasury companies will be able to withstand this kind of bear market environment that we're in? I mean, just considering that some of them did go for the convertible note offering, and as you said, there's an element of risk there that, if the market stays down for long enough, that they're going to become essentially distressed companies. Do you think we're going to see more of a shakeout of some of these companies and then more sort of Strive, Semler Scientific buyouts when essentially their Bitcoin's at a deep discount?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised there wasn't more M&A in the space.
Yeah.
When a lot of the companies, and we were one of them early on, that was trading below net asset value pretty deeply for a while. And everyone was kind of the mindset of, well, why aren't people just out acquiring these companies? And the hard part about that is no company wants to sell themselves at a discount.
Yes.
Right? It's very difficult to convince a board to sell themselves to another company at a discount. With Semler Scientific, it was kind of the perfect storm of opportunities. Eric Semler was a huge believer in the preferred model. Semler had gone to a vote trying to get perpetual preferreds approved. They didn't get the votes to get it done. They had a convertible bond that was taking up a lot of their capital structure, so they were kind of stuck in place, but he was a huge believer in the possibility or in the potential of having a perpetual preferred in market. He saw that Strive was the company that had the corporate or the capital structure to be able to do that now. And so he was one of the rare guys that saw that the combination of the two companies was going to be better than both of them standing alone. That was unique.
Yeah.
With a lot of other companies, what you're fighting with is a board that doesn't want to sell themselves at a discount, right? If we already have assets that are worth more, why would I sell my company for less? You have management teams that want to maintain, their roles and their positions, right? This is their job, it's what they want to be doing. And so I think right now a lot of the companies are working to try to get themselves out of the position that they're in, right? You've seen a lot of restructuring happening. Like you mentioned Nakamoto, you've seen them taking a lot of actions trying to get out from under the debt that they have to free themselves up to be able to operate again. The other thing that can fix a lot of these problems for a lot of the companies would be a Bitcoin run. You know, Bitcoin moving and moving higher solves a lot of issues for these companies. The longer it stays down here, the more risk there is that companies would need to start selling Bitcoin, whether it's to fund operations or to right-size debt obligations. But I do think you will see consolidation. You know, to me, it would make sense if you had groups of these companies that were trading below NAV where they could see that a combination could give them enough scale to be able to get back out into the market and operate, because there's nothing the market punishes more than inaction.
Yes.
If they see you sitting there doing nothing, the market has a very short attention span, they lose interest, liquidity dries up, and then you're in a very tough position to get things going again.
My final question to you, you've been in Bitcoin since 2013, you're very much involved in the institutionalization of Bitcoin, but how do you weigh that up from maybe how you viewed Bitcoin and how you experienced it in 2013 versus what it is today in 2026 as money for people in Bitcoin circular economies, and then, you know, pristine capital for the strategies of the world?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting evolution because I think most of us came to Bitcoin for the freedom money.
Yes.
Right, that was why we were here. And if you ask any of our executives, you know, the first advice that we're going to give anybody is Bitcoin and cold storage is one of the foundational values that you have here. It's one of the most powerful things you have in the world to actually be the bearer of your own value, right? You can hold your own value, you can transact it anywhere, you don't have to ask anybody's permission. That should be the starting point for anybody who understands Bitcoin. Right?
Yeah.
That's why you come here. It was transformational. We saw it evolve over time, right? It took time for Bitcoin to be able to be recognized as capital, where it became an interesting asset for corporations to start to utilize. You needed to see enough people adopting it. You needed to see it become resilient. You needed to see the infrastructure built around it where you could start using it for collateral in a business position. And over time, it proved that out in spades, right?
Yeah.
Bitcoin is the most battle-tested instrument that we've ever seen. And so the view that we have as a corporation doing this, and a lot of people will talk about the products and they don't necessarily think they're aligned with the Bitcoin ethos, I totally disagree with that. Because what I view us as doing is taking a product that moves Bitcoin one step closer to the people who haven't found it yet. Right, everybody has cash obligations in their lives right now. We're able to design a model around an entire capital structure based on Bitcoin, design the perfect product to go find those people that still have the cash flow needs, let them see the value Bitcoin can bring by bringing it to their doorstep, and eventually that's going to cause them to ask the question, what makes this possible? Why does this work?
Yeah.
And if it works for this other product that I like so much, maybe Bitcoin's something that I should be holding myself.
Yeah.
And that's a belief that we have. We really do think this is going to accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin itself for individuals, because I think that's critical to the continued growth here, right? We need more people to find Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We can get caught up in echo chambers where everybody thinks the same way we are, that's already found Bitcoin, that's been in it for a long time, and we can forget how distant so many people out there are, right?
Yeah.
They'll give you the blank stare. We view this as us taking one step closer to them instead of waiting for them to have to take one step closer to us.
Definitely. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us, and we'll continue to watch in interest as you guys continue to grow at an exponential rate. And I think it's important that there is, you know, a handful of companies that are innovating where Saylor has dominated the innovation. So I think that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Keep it locked on the live stream. We're going to be back in a couple of minutes' time. I'm chatting to my good friend, Joe Nakamoto. Stay with us on the starting block. We'll be right back. welcome back to BTC Prague. We are broadcasting the starting block live from the conference. I'm joined by a good friend of mine, an old colleague, and a man that probably needs no introduction if you're into the world of Bitcoin, Joe Nakamoto.
Hey, mate.
Joe, how's it going, man?
It's very good to see you guys.
It's
Should we
been-
shake hands
Yeah,
over
there you
the
go.
laptop? Can we do this? It's
we
lovely
hug?
to see you, mate. How are you feeling? I mean, your team lost yesterday. Is that
That was
fresh on
pretty
your
rough.
mind, or?
It was pretty rough.
Yeah.
We went to we actually went to the Irish pub last night,
Yeah.
but it's a join to a Dutch pub. They're like basically the same establishment but two different styles. So we went there to watch the game, and I sat down with 3 or 4 other people.
Yeah.
With Herman Favir from Bitcoin Akasi, he came as well. But we
Fellow
were
South
sitting in this
African.
pub.
Yeah.
Like we were just surrounded by maybe like 50 Mexican fans.
Oh, they go hard.
And they go hard. And then obviously the game went the way it went. Bafana got 2 red cards. They lost 2-0. And like we were kind of excited about having a good night out, but they lost the game. And I was like, let's go home.
Bedtime.
I'm done.
Yeah,
So
I get it.
Yeah, licking my wounds a little bit, but
Yeah.
luckily I'm not a sports journalist anymore. I'm into Bitcoin, so I don't
And
have to
obviously,
worry too
Bitcoin
much.
and crypto totally winning right
Yeah.
now. So there's that, sub 65K.
Yeah,
Licking our wounds.
Basically, red cards as well for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But yeah, here we are, like Bitcoin Prague, BTC Prague. It's been a long time since we actually saw each other in person. And for the audience out there that don't know you, Joe and I used to work together at our old publication. I won't mention the name now, but we spent a lot of years working together.
It's called Shitcoin Telegraph.
There we go. You said it, not me.
Is that going to be bleeped?
No, this is live, so
Beautiful.
everything we put out there. Yeah, but yeah, Joe and I used to work together for a long time. But if you don't know Joe, he's a fantastic Bitcoin-focused journalist. He goes out there, does mini documentaries around the world, essentially covering Bitcoin circular economies and the adoption of Bitcoin as money. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, like in general today.
Bitcoin is digital credit, by the way. It's a vacuum and a vehicle in which that many technical analysis and things take place. It's not just money.
Yeah, no, it's a get-rich scheme for those that know what to do. You know?
Yeah.
I think that's the crazy thing. Like we had Jack Mallers on the show yesterday.
I had dinner with him last night.
Yeah,
He's such a lovely, lovely bloke.
He's a great guy,
Yeah.
and I wanted we had talks with Michael Saylor to come on the live stream today, and eventually he just turned it down. I don't think he really wanted to do a live stream kind of setting interview because there's some things you might not want to have to tackle on a live stream because a live stream's a live stream, right? I ask you questions in real time, and there's no redacting it afterwards because it's a live stream. So anyway, he turned
I think
us down.
also, can you imagine if Saylor was sat here? And bear in mind, people watching at home probably think that this is like a very nice booth somewhere in like the wings of BTC Prague.
Right.
You walk into BTC Prague, you see a great big The Block, you see Gareth sitting there, and I think that Saylor's security probably took one look at this and thought, oh my God, there could be so many different attack vectors. He gave a talk yesterday in the VIP, and when it comes to these absolute big dogs, the billionaires, I'm always curious to be like, okay, where are the security? And you look around and there's a bunch of blokes in cypherpunk t-shirts, guys with suits and ties on, and they're just a couple of like ridiculously hench guys. And they're not the carnivore maxi people. No, they are Saylor's security.
Yeah.
And it was like that in El Salvador this January, where you had several billionaires and several security teams.
Yeah.
There's Paolo Arduino's billionaire. Well, he's a billionaire, and he had his security detail. There was Giancarlo, his co-founder. There was Bukele's, of course, his security detail. It's just hilarious seeing all these Bitcoiners amidst like these gigantic men who are just there eyeballing everything. And they, you ask them, how you doing? How's your day going? And Saylor's security are quite nice.
Yeah.
They bought a lot of Bitcoin because of him.
Okay.
This was 2022 when I last spoke to them.
Really?
So since 2022, they are up, which is good.
That's great.
They've 2 or 3x their money, which is presumably what they're trying to do with it. They're not necessarily into it for the Bitcoin as money argument. They're more to save their money in it. But yeah, I don't think you'd be able to fit Saylor on this booth without there being 4,000 people suddenly swarming this booth and trying to take selfies.
To be fair to Bonnie and the team, I wasn't taking a dig at them. I completely understand that Saylor, it's very difficult for him to do the live stream, and that's exactly what she asked me, was like, is it pre-recorded and is it in a private room? And I was like, no, it's a live stream and it's on the expo
in
floor.
the middle of the hall.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the Block's audience is crypto native, so they're not Bitcoin only, right? And it's kind of hard to, you have to see it for yourself. Saylor at a Bitcoin conference is crazy. When I went to Vegas last year, the final session of the day probably had like 10 or 15,000 people.
Yep.
And Saylor ended up doing an interview on CNBC at one of the exits of the main stage hall. So like people started piling out, and then there he is sitting in like a similar sitting like setting like this, and then it was just like basically 1,000 people just crowded around this one thing, and like that's
Right.
a security nightmare. I mean, no one's
It's
going
also
to
a
mug him or anything.
fire escape risk, and
Yeah,
you know,
it's
health
just
and safety is
crazy.
going mad.
It's
and,
crazy.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that's the crazy thing to me is that that's the cult of personality that he has now in the Bitcoin space, is that everyone knows Saylor. Most people love him and adore him because, for the most part, he's been good for Bitcoin and the advocacy of Bitcoin. Whether or not we agree on the financialization or the institutionalization on Bitcoin,
I think he's taking a lot of flack right now and a lot of criticism. And I mean, to your point about that, you know, the crowding. I mean, for the crypto native audience, it's akin to Vitalik walking through a conference, or Joe Lubin, or maybe not Gavin Wood, but you know, some of these huge crypto guys walking through an event and like taking selfies, and before you know it, there would probably be about 300 people around
there would
Vitalik.
be.
Yeah.
Even Jack yesterday, when he came on the stream, he got off, and like within 3 or 4 minutes of just standing behind where the cameras are, there was like 50 people around him, and I was like, shit.
I mean, the poor guy tried to leave BTC Prague early last year after doing his keynote, and it was an amazing keynote all about, well, effectively
was very
suicide and the monetary policy and why it's led to so many sort of young people's deaths and problems with like men's mental health, all this sort of thing. And he talked very emotively and, you know, personally about his own experience and how he's lost friends and because of this. And that's why he's so into Bitcoin and so against the dollar. And you could see that it was one of those talks that would take something out of you and you give a piece of yourself to the audience in that. And he tries to sneak out the back. And I was on and off stage at that point as well. And he sort of walks like casually out towards the exit. And there's about 100 meters there. And 20 meters in, there's a small semicircle around him. And then he keeps walking, and before you know it, there's just like a small crowd. And it's like seeing a celebrity A-lister walk in the streets. You know, like if Mr. Beast was to walk through a shopping center, the shopping center would have to close, right? This is kind of what happens at the Bitcoin events. And it's kind of mad that these people do have that kind of profile.
Yeah.
But it just speaks to how important Bitcoin is for a lot of people nowadays, and how religiously and how fervently they believe in this thing.
Yeah.
It's a wild thing, but I think ultimately they can still walk in the streets without being harassed.
Yes.
Well, maybe not in Prague on a day like today because there's so many Bitcoiners around, but
mostly I think they would be incognito in other environments as well.
We have a wild honey badger backstage.
I hope he doesn't come and attack us. But let's talk a little bit about you, Joe. I mean, you just got like 50K followers on X as well. Your YouTube channel's doing fantastically well. And we've been friends for a long time, and I've always loved the content that you do because you deeply care about Bitcoin and what it is, a freedom technology.
Yep.
And you've gone around the world, you know, going and documenting Bitcoin circular economies.
Yeah.
We had Herman on the show yesterday, so people at home kind of might understand a little bit more about that. But tell us a little bit about why you're doing what you're doing and actually how hard it is, because you're an independent and you need more support than you do. And I know that you're very humble and you don't like to ask for support, but there should be more people at this conference, more Bitcoiners that are looking at journalists like you and getting behind you and helping you do what you do, because you're doing amazing work for Bitcoin.
Mate, my ego right now, I'm not going to be able to get through that
Gas you up
door.
a bit more.
Yeah. My head's going to be so big I won't be able to fit through this damn door.
It's genuinely honest. That's how I feel.
Thank you. I'm very touched. Thank you. I mean, I work very, very hard at what I do. I kill myself doing it, but it's because I care, and I found my cheesy ikigai sort of setup, and the reason why I do it is because no one else is bloody doing it. I came into sort of crypto journalism 6 years ago. Is it 7 years? 2019, 2020. Jesus, that these cycles do fly very quickly. And I came into it because I was like, why is no one telling stories of everyday people doing interesting things with Bitcoin? And that's how I pitched the old company that we used to work for, and basically said, listen, I want to approach this with a Bitcoin-only focus and try to explain ways in which people are using Bitcoin in creative, fun, inspiring ways. And it was everything from the guy in Senegal who uses Bitcoin to send it across borders, or the girl in Senegal who had orange-pilled her local fishing village to accept Bitcoin, and she changed her name to Mama Bitcoin, and all these sort of amazing little stories. I went to Bitcoin Akasi in South Africa, in a township there that's onboarding teenagers that have troubling relationships with their parents. Their parents might be alcoholics. Maybe they steal their teenage sons and daughters, effectively their lunch money or their pocket money. And so they get this Bitcoin thing and they realize, my parents can no longer steal my money. I can stand on my own 2 feet and I can leave these toxic relationships. And it's heartbreaking, but also it's quite inspiring because they are suddenly able to look at life with a totally different perspective. Like previously they had no future. With Bitcoin, they suddenly have future, and that presents with it opportunity and better life outcomes, right? And so
Yeah.
I've always come to it through that angle of I want to tell human interest stories about Bitcoin doing cool stuff. But as I've sort of evolved as a journalist, it's also, I've delved into crypto scams and how and why the crypto industry is built to scam individuals. And I did, like, my pinned tweet on my Twitter is still exposing crypto scams from Bitcoin Asia, one of the side events there about ordinals. And ordinals, you know, is a classic NFT pump and dump thing. And I basically interviewed founders and said, hello, you say your tokens are fixed at 1 billion. Could that change? And they say, no, it wouldn't change. We fixed the code as it is. And then you say, yeah, but you could change it. Come on, man. Maybe you want to just fork the code a little bit. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I suppose so. And so it's just that thing of a lot of these projects present themselves as, hi, we are decentralized. We are, of course, unruggable. We are super secure, and look at our amazing marketing. And then you push them a little bit and you realize, okay, this is just another one of these thousands and thousands of crypto scams.
Yeah.
So I've gone down that angle. I've also gone a lot down the Bitcoin mining angle recently. That's primarily because one of the biggest threats to Bitcoin mining right now is miner centralization.
Yeah.
So more and more mining hash rate is centralized to China, to Chinese pools, whether it's F2 pool or via BTC. And then in the US, you've got two major pools, which is, you know, Mara, a very large American pool, and the other one I've just forgotten the name of right now. But effectively, 70% of the hash rate is in these two countries, and you could sort of compare it to like a superpowers facing each other down. But ultimately, it's not good for the decentralization of what should be a very decentralized network.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to inspire more people to plug in a miner at home, start solo mining, because although solo mining is still less than 1% of the global hash rate, which is tiny, it's infinitesimally small, it's still gone up from like 0.08% to about 0.7% just in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
So we are seeing a resurgence in home mining, and I want to put my name behind that. I want to put my name behind more independent mining pools, whether it's Ocean, whether it's, you know, Brains or other European pools, because we need to see hash rate across the entire spectrum of the planet.
Yeah.
We can't just see it in China and the US. And so through that, I've ended up doing different sort of Bitcoin mining stories. Like there was a guy in the UK, in London, who turned his house into a Bitcoin mining off-grid experiment.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, he put solar panels on his roof and thought, yeah, I'm going to mine with solar in a country where it rains 300 days of the year and somehow pull it off. And he does some of it solo mining, some of it he's mining to a pool. And he's just one of those guys that sort of took the proverbial orange pill, like understood Bitcoin to the nth degree, and thought, yeah, I'm going to put my name on this, can put my work into it, I'm going to put my time and energy, that sort of Jeff Booth school of thought, into this space, and he's had amazing outcomes.
Yeah.
You know, his teenage daughters think he's an absolute whack job, but they're also very happy that, you know, one of them got a new dirt bike during the last bull run because Bitcoin price went up, and he's been in the space for 10 years now. He knows how to sort of play the game. And I did a video recently in Madeira where there was I don't know if you saw this one, it's called the Bitcoin Farmer.
Yeah.
And this guy he used to be a AI software engineer until about 2014. And he basically saw the direction of being an AI software engineer, which is AI is going to replace me at some point.
Yeah.
I'm effectively just twiddling around with numbers on a screen all day long. And what is it all for? And, you know, he was, at the same time, he was getting more and more serious with his now wife. And they were talking about family. And so he's like, you know what, sod it. Going to do what I've always wanted to do. I'm going to buy this farm in Madeira, going to get some big dogs, and I'm going to work out how to get Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining incorporated into my farm. So he grows endemic species in Madeira. So he has like Madeiran lavender, Madeiran little cacti or cactuses, and all sorts of succulents and microgreens, that kind of thing. And it's in a greenhouse, but Madeira is still quite cold in the winter, so he thought he'd heat his Bitcoin miners with Bitcoin. Well, he thought he'd heat the greenhouse with Bitcoin miners.
Yeah.
Then he's also gone full permaculture, classic, like mildly autistic, 140 IQ Bitcoiner. So he's now also keeping worms warm with Bitcoin miner heat, because obviously worms are very important components of farming and keeping the soil healthy. He's helping the soil sort of biodegrade with Bitcoin miner heat. And he's also dehydrating chilies, herbs, and other sort of edible small plant feed, or plants rather,
with the heat
with
from the
Bitcoin miner heat again. So he's just approached farming with this Bitcoin mining lens, and guess what? He's mega profitable, and he's able to build out his farm even more, because he was like, I could have got regular radiators, regular heaters, and the upfront cost would have been less. but over a long enough time period. And farming is not a short-term game. Farming is think in decades or even generations. It's not think in terms of one harvest and the next harvest.
Yeah.
And he plants trees as well. He grows espetada trees, so they're like laurel trees. So some of them are used for spikes in a espetada, like when you get meat on it looks like a kebab skewer. Yeah. But Madeiran style, it's on a laurel tree, which takes 10 years to grow. So he grows those as well. And he just has this amazing sort of low time preference view on farming, which you have to have anyway, but with Bitcoin on top, it's sort of this ultimate sort of cheat code to being a better farmer. And this guy's a software engineer, He's not green-fingered and, wearing a cowboy hat. He's just a dude that was like, I want to spend more time with my family, more time outside, more time with the planet.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin mining is one of the tools that helps me to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to cover different aspects of Bitcoin, but ultimately this is a call out to anyone watching. If you are doing something cool with Bitcoin, please DM me. Let's talk. I would love to document your story and please let me know. It would be cool to turn up with a camera and see what you're doing.
And if they want to watch the content, where do they plug your channels?
So, thanks, mate. Shill.
Go for it.
It's just Joe Nakamoto. That is my stage name. And so you can find Joe Nakamoto. Nakamoto, of course, is Satoshi's last name. Satoshi Nakamoto, the guy that built Bitcoin, or the guys that built Bitcoin. And it rhymes, it's catchy, and obviously I'm half Japanese, as you can tell.
The furthest thing from Japanese.
Yeah.
For me, obviously, I've always enjoyed the content that you do, and there's been a lot of people just doing the same thing all the time, right? And I think it's important for us to look for the new stories to tell, and you're one of those people that's just actively going out there.
Yeah, it's
and
called journalism. We've got to do it. Yeah.
Unbelievable that it's actually possible.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy thing to do. But the impact that it has, even just having Herman on yesterday and talking about Bitcoin and custody to potentially a new audience, people at the block, our audience that don't know what that is and what a Bitcoin circular economy is, it just wakes people up to what it is. And Jordan, my producer behind the screen there, was kind of saying to me yesterday, like, I've never been to a Bitcoin only conference, and every interview that we did yesterday, everyone kind of got back to the why of Bitcoin, that like freedom aspect. Like, I want to be free. I want to have control of my money and not have to depend on a state or a central issuer to do that. And I think that's the most important thing.
It is the most important thing, but I also think it falls on deaf ears for a lot of people, because if you
it's
talk
too easy
to
to stay in the system, man. It's comfortable, especially in Europe.
It's convenient.
Yeah.
Look at Revolut, right? Why is Bitcoin not doing what Revolut has done? But it's because Revolut is convenient and easy, and everyone's got it, and you can send money easily, and blah blah blah. Like, if we keep going with the trope of Bitcoin is freedom money. Bitcoin allows you to be your own bank. You ask the guy on the street, do you want to be your own bank? They say, fuck that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, can I swear?
You can swear. You just did. It's
fantastic.
Too late
Good,
now. We
yeah.
did yesterday as well. So
it's always ask for forgiveness, never permission, right?
Yes.
But that's not good life advice. Please don't follow that. But yeah, the Bitcoin is freedom money thing has worked for the past 16 years to a growing number of people. And as states get bigger and bigger around the world, as they slowly erode people's personal freedoms and privacy and ability just to do things for themselves and ultimately think for themselves too. I don't want to sound too conspiratorial or whatever, but we went through the pandemic, and effectively every day you were told by your government a way to behave, a way to act, and a lot of people had sort of lost a little bit the ability to think for themselves. And then people worry about AI doom slop and how that's going to affect education in people. And I'm like, guys, AI is not the issue. It's TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
That is the thing that has made us all super stupid, and we're not able to think for ourselves more and more. So I think that, yes, Bitcoin is very good at talking to those people that are able to sort of realize that, but a lot of people are so caught up with making the next rent payment or mortgage payment, whatever it is, ensuring their kids are have got clean underwear on and have got to school on time, and are able to just be like, okay, I've got to the weekend, well, I better do my washing, clean my house, and get back to it again, because on Monday it restarts.
Yeah.
There's not enough time to be like, Bitcoin is freedom money and
Yeah.
decentralization and scarcity and all this mumbo jumbo, which to us is sexy and appealing, but I think we do need to find new narratives around Bitcoin, because ultimately we came into Bitcoin through that story, right?
Yes.
I came to Bitcoin through seeing how governments in Western Africa, Southern Africa, developing emerging markets, the global South, whatever you want to call it, how governments just got bigger and bigger, rug people were just inherently corrupt, and people couldn't stand on their own 2 feet.
Yeah.
And then those that started using Bitcoin, I was like, holy shit, it makes way more sense for someone living in Kenya to adopt Bitcoin than it does necessarily from some poor student like me living in London being like, I don't have any money to save in Bitcoin and I've got my bank account. I don't need that necessarily.
The system's good enough for you to transact value and stuff.
And then when I got debanked from the likes of Revolut, and when I traveled more and more, you just start to get more of a perspective on, okay, the state is one thing, central banks are another. I understand Bitcoin as a magnet to sort of extract a bit of power from that and to keep it in check. And I really like that argument. But I think that we also need to find more interesting stories and narratives to tell, to explain to people. Like my parents, for example. It's probably the same for your parents, right? They lived through the tail end of this golden generation, like the boomer generation, where you could literally get a good job, you could literally save money, and you could literally afford a nice house. Yeah. And it was as simple as that.
And furnish the house and, and
have a nice holiday.
Yeah.
And maybe, one of the two, the father or the mother, could be like, actually, I'm only going to work part-time, or maybe I'm just not going to work at all. And you try to have that conversation with anyone our age, and it's like, are you having a giraffe, mate? Yeah. Either you're in, PE, or you're a crypto trader that actually knows what he's doing, or you are both working overtime, both killing yourselves for your career to be able to afford those things that our previous generations could do quite easily. So we've got to find ways of talking to the Gen Zs in particular, because that's a whole new generation that they've got their own sort of understanding of the world, their own perspective, and then obviously to millennials, I think for the millennials that are able to save a little bit of money, then obviously Bitcoin makes total sense. For the millennials that are freedom oriented, that had a terrible time during the pandemic, or maybe have got a worldliness about them that makes them understand that we need Bitcoin to keep central banks in check, to keep the governments in check, then great. And obviously we've already got the anarcho-capitalists, we've already got those people that were libertarian minded, but we don't have many center-left leaning liberals that are happily on the political spectrum, happily taking part in democratic institutions and believe in that, and are also quite happy to entertain this Bitcoin idea. So in many ways, I kind of want Bitcoin to get a bit more normie. I want it to get a bit more sexy to the average person. And I think to do that, we just need to sell more. Well, for me, it's more show awesome people doing cool stuff with Bitcoin, but don't sell it as they're doing cool stuff with Bitcoin. Just sell it as, for example, Steve, the London guy I brought up earlier, he sold everything to move off grid was the title of the YouTube video. It didn't say he sold everything to go all in on Bitcoin. It just said to move off grid. The tool that allowed him to move off grid was the Bitcoin. This Bitcoin farmer in Madeira, it was the farming that really made him feel this total self-actualization. The Bitcoin was just, again, the unlock to get him there. And with Herman in Bitcoin Akazi, his whole thing was education, empowerment, dismantling chains that have kept the youth where they are, particularly in apartheid sort of echoing South Africa. And Bitcoin, again, was the tool that unlocked that. So I think it's more focusing on that wonderful storytelling, like this hero's journey sort of thing, and the fact that, Bitcoin is just Excalibur on that hero's journey. It's just, it's Frodo's ring. That's a terrible comparison. It's a terrible comparison. It's the Fellowship of the Ring, right? But it's not the actual... the story itself. You don't watch Lord of the Rings for the Fellowship. You watch it for the fight scenes, the dialogue, the score, whatever it is. But you're not there oh my god, this is a great Bitcoin movie. It's a great Fellowship movie. No, it's just one of those unlocks to allowing people to achieve greater personal freedoms, greater personal financial autonomy, and ultimately, I think, to live a lot more authentically. A lot of Bitcoiners I know are very, very authentic people, and we live in increasingly inauthentic times.
Definitely.
And I think that's for me, that's I think a lot of young people in particular are like, what is my identity? Where do I go? And that's a tale as old as time. But what is my identity? Where do I go in the age of AI slop? And everyone, every model kind of looks the same. You know what I mean? Every woman nowadays has the same filler, cheek job, nose job, whatever, fake boobs. And you're like, there's got to be more individualism. There's got to be more self-expression. And I think that Bitcoin is just one of those tools that helps you get there. It could also be doing loads of sport, or getting really involved with music, or getting involved with community service, or whatever it is. But just trying those things makes total sense. But make sure you just do it with a little bit of Bitcoin on the side. Mate, I've gone all over the shop with this answer.
That's okay. That's okay.
Coffee's kicking in.
There we go. No, I like that. We've had, I'm laughing because we've had so many awesome riffs right at the end of each individual segment. But I've got Richard from Rootstock joining us in a minute's time, Joe. So we're going to end it there. It's always good to catch up with you. If you're not following Joe on social media, at Joe Nakamoto, easy enough to find. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's one of the best out there, voices of Bitcoin. Keep it locked right here on the starting block. We'll be back in a couple of minutes' time with Richard Green from Rootstock. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, let's go the block.
Welcome back to The Starting Block. We're broadcasting live here from BTC Prague with another news desk interview. I'm joined by Richard Green, who's the VP of Institutional at Rootstock Labs. If you're asking yourself what Rootstock Labs is, I'm going to hand it over to you. First things first, Richard, how's it going?
Perfect. Yeah, very well, thank you. It's great to be in Prague, and get straight to the aspect of what is Rootstock and Rootstock Labs. So Rootstock is a Bitcoin sidechain. First one created in 2018, EVM compatibility and proof of work. So incredibly secure chain. It's about 80 to 90% of the hash rate that's securing the layer one secures Rootstock. And so within that, we've got an ecosystem of payment providers, we've got an ecosystem of DeFi, and then my side is the institutional aspect. So that's something that we've been growing out over the past year or so with the idea and the kind of headline of making Bitcoin productive at the institutional level. And so we can definitely go into that obviously in more depth.
I mean, I've been to lots of Bitcoin conferences. I'm a big Bitcoin proponent myself. I've covered the entire industry for a long time. So I've written a lot about Ethereum, a lot about all these other new sort of proof of stake protocols. And I know a lot of Bitcoiners have always been like hesitant to the idea of scaling and the idea of alternative chains being the vessel through which we make Bitcoin more performant as a means of payment, and also able to provide yield, actually let people do something with their Bitcoin other than just hold it as a store of value and use it as money.
Yeah.
And I think for a long time that was quite a difficult piece, especially for Rootstock, which has been a long time in the industry.
It has,
Maybe you can talk a little bit about navigating that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely spot on there. When Rootstock was founded, that proof of work element and being as close to Bitcoin as possible was the core aspect of it. Because at that time, the majority of the Bitcoin holders were the OGs, were the maxis, and their view was there is only one true asset. And that was our founders' view as well. The one true asset is Bitcoin, but it lacks that EVM smart contract compatibility side of things. And so throughout whatever we've done at Rootstock, whether it be new product enhancements and features added, we always try and stay as close to that as possible. And I remember the conversations when I joined a couple of years ago with clients or with integrations and also with users. There were two schools of thought. There were those people who were wanting Bitcoin to become productive, wanting to be able to deploy it into DEXs, perp trading and that kind of thing. And there were those who just didn't. And I think that you have to make a decision as the core contributing group of where do you see the growth being? And I think that our view was that the growth sits with staying close, but also pushing into other areas. And if you look at like the yield side of things, because that's a really I would say, difficult conversation to have. Yeah. But there are a lot of people who go, well, Bitcoin doesn't have yield. It shouldn't have yield. But the fact of the matter is now many different people hold Bitcoin for many different reasons than they did previously.
Yes.
And so what you want to do, whether that be generate yield through the digital credit side, but from a Rootstock perspective, how do we look at it? Well, we're proof of work, so we can't stake. You can't get yield through that. It's not Lightning Network, so you can't get yield through the nodes. We will be, through the next 2 to 3, 4 months, starting to roll out more products that under kind of licensing and regulated aspects, where we can stay true to that and stay true to Rootstock, looking at hash rate, right? Like, how do we make sure that the utility of the blockchain contributes towards the holders of Bitcoin without going into too much financial engineering? Obviously, from an integration side and from protocol side, we have third parties such as Midas, Mello, Tier Capital, where they have tokenized a market neutral strategy. And that's great. That's absolutely fine. If you are a Bitcoin holder and want to deploy into something like that, go for it. Where we want to solve and meet the need is within our ecosystem. How can we contribute to it, grow it, but then also stay super true to that Bitcoin angle?
Yeah, I'm very interested in your role sort of as VP of Institutional, because basically since Bitcoin ETFs went live, there's been a lot of financial instruments that are allowing institutional capital to have exposure to Bitcoin or earn yield on Bitcoin in some way in wrappers that institutional investors understand, right? Whether it's Bitcoin ETFs or Bitcoin treasury companies now, they have this option. Whereas a company like Rootstock is basically saying, hey, use our software, use our protocol, and you can do a lot more of this stuff natively on chain. Whereas a lot of institutional investors might just be like, well, I understand how IBIT works, so we're just going to invest our money there.
Yeah.
Have they eaten into your lunch a little bit? Has it been a bit harder?
I think that yes and no. I think the way that I see it is the ETF is the gateway into Bitcoin ownership, whether that be from an institutional or a retail angle, right? They understand it, it's liquid, it's readily available, they can put it into IRAs and everything like that, and perfect. And Rootstock Labs and what we're offering sits a little bit higher up in that learning and education curve of the products that we offer. So would we go after somebody who's not held Bitcoin before, not held an ETF before, is thinking about holding an ETF and going to them, hey, look, not only do you need to buy Bitcoin, but you then need to take your Bitcoin, put it into our bridge, move it to our receipt of Bitcoin, and then you need to deploy it into a either on or off-chain DeFi strategy to generate yield. From a go-to-market and a commercial career perspective, it's a pretty difficult and long sell.
Yeah.
So I think that when we look at that, it's like, who's the lowest hanging fruit? And the lowest hanging fruit are the DeFi native, crypto hedge funds, the ones who are looking and going, okay, I want to be able to do something with this, and I understand wrapped Bitcoin, I understand smart contract risk, I understand counterparty risk and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think what we've seen within the DeFi space is like a massive loss of liquidity and a big pullback on that. So what it was 180 billion in terms of TVL into DeFi applications, and now it's around the 70 billion mark, so a really big pull away, and the liquidity's gone. So that low-hanging fruit is still there, but it's parking its capital a little bit into what it wants to do. And so I think, again, when we look at that, it's like, well, what's the next step down from that? And what you have are digital asset treasury companies, mining firms, OGs who have become really used to holding spot Bitcoin and going, okay, I get it now. I understand it. I actually don't want to move into the DeFi world just yet, as in like on-chain lending or borrowing. What I want is a tokenized fund strategy that's on Rootstock. And the reason that I want that is it provides composability or it provides better liquidity. And so, yeah, I'm willing to take that risk. But it is a massive education piece. And that is what we have been spending a lot of time doing, is sitting down with these businesses, with these institutions, and having to hold their hand through what are the core risks to the business and what are they actually having to think of. And so I think that the ETF is, and the outflows or the inflows, we're building for the future, and we'll consistently build for the future because it is going to lead to more and more adoption. And then hopefully, once the AI bots have kind of cracked the different DeFi protocols that are crackable, which is a really sad thing to say, right? And I hope that everybody has no issue with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
But in 6-8 months, that money might come back into the market and they go, yeah, we're a little less risk, we're a little more risk averse, and we're willing to deploy them.
Yeah. When it comes to AI tools, obviously like DeFi protocols this year have lost so much value to essentially exploits that are largely being attributed to people leveraging AI's ability to audit code and find vulnerabilities. Is the Rootstock team, like from a technical perspective, looking at the protocol and like considering these kind of risks? Are they there? Is it a reality?
It is there, and it's a massive reality. We have a really strong, again, the benefit of where we are, of 8 years worth of building, is that we also have a really strong team who's seen all of those things. So I think we published a paper quite recently, whilst not on the AI side, regarding like how we're addressing quantum computing threats and what we're doing there. So we have a really strong research team who consistently look into that, and we partner with the top cybersecurity firms within the space. But obviously, as a blockchain, it's also that we have a risk to how strong are our partners and the protocols who sit on the chain, because it's kind of like a sense of if one of them gets hacked, it's not a good look for Rootstock either.
Yeah.
If, as an institutional participant, you go, well, it might not have been the chain that was hacked, it might not have been the bridge that was hacked, it was the protocol, but there'll still be that liquidity drop. So again, we work with partners to make sure that they're ready and prepared for those kinds of things, make those introductions, and that we have a base layer across the whole. And on the AI side, I think that we are, there's the bad side to it from the hack side, but then there's also obviously the positive side to it of the trading side that they're bringing in, the liquidity that the AI bots are bringing in as well. And so we're also thinking about how do we prepare for the good sides of AI? Are we integrating with people? Are we building products that are going to be able to support the more AI-driven trading bots, DEXs, perps, and things like that?
Obviously, I'm sure you guys keep a good lay of the land in terms of your competitors. Botanics, I think, announced this week that they were closing down. And I was really surprised because obviously I think they built like a really great piece of infrastructure and they made the tough decision to wind down. And I kind of feel like it's a little bit of the sign of the times for people trying to do more things on Bitcoin, which is pretty disappointing. But at the same time, you guys are still going strong. It doesn't seem like you're going anywhere. What was the talk internally about that, and what do you think it says?
I mean, it's sad, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone wants to see that within anywhere, whether they seem to be a competitor or not. I've had the fortune of meeting the Botanics guys at a couple of events, and we've always had that relationship where it was very much it's great to have learned from you. We're learning from them. They're learning from us. And so you never want to see that. I think we, as you say, are very fortunate in the sense that when Rootstock was built, the proof of work side, it's very difficult to build a proof of work chain. The amount to be able to go out and secure the hash rate in the modern time costs a lot of money to be able to do that. So again, we're very fortunate that we started early. And that we did that then and can kind of build through that time now. And so, but yeah, we see that. And I think as we spoke about earlier with the drop in DeFi, where we're now positioning ourselves is not, and I use this quite a lot internally, is not narrow and wide. It's shallow and wide. It's very narrow and deep. Yeah. Who are we going to be targeting? Well, for our upcoming products that are around Bitcoin-backed lending and yield, we look and we go, the mining community, we know them very well. They have needs for loans and they have needs or wants for yield. Well, let's focus on that for a really strong time and not pick up quantity in terms of multiple different partners, but real quality. And move away from thinking, if you can have 6 or 7 partners who are doing the same amount of size Bitcoin locked that you were getting from 200, 300, then I think that's the thing that we want to do in this market. In this bear market is sit, build, ship product that we've been doing, new things like Atlas and Union, which are dumbing it down very much, are 2 new bridges into the ecosystem. But that's the focus that we want to have. And again, I don't think it is necessarily a sign that there is not the demand for BTC5 products. I think it's the sign that there is a demand in small pockets that is deep. There's deep liquidity in small areas, and you must try and do that and have the staying power to be able to do that, which we fortunately do.
My final question to you, what do you think the biggest misconception around Rootstock and perhaps a couple of other sidechain-based products, I would say, like just from my own opinion, is that most Bitcoiners are allergic to locking up their Bitcoin or wrapping their Bitcoin and getting a derivative token back and yield in something else.
Yeah, it is completely that, and I'll maybe add another more, but it is exactly that. That is the biggest hurdle that we face, that someone comes with Bitcoin, they look at a model, within our bridge, we have a non-custodial model, so it is something that is really strong and supportive of self-custodial, but they still don't want to give that up. And that could also be for other reasons, such as like tax purposes. Is that moving from Bitcoin into a wrapped version, or for us, it's a receipt version, a taxable event? Yeah. We've done a lot of research into that, and our view is that is not. But there are all of those different things that sit within it. And I think the other misconception that a lot of that is that kind of all smart contracts are built the same. So if there's a smart contract hack on one side, then any one smart contracts are hackable. And so that education piece of, okay, what does it mean to hand over custody in what that my mental model feels like? What actually is that?
Yeah.
What does that then implicate, taxable or non? And then what is the risk beyond that in terms of it sitting in a smart contract open to all of these AI bots that are just going to be firing at it and trying to unlock that value? Yeah. So those are the three core things that we try and distill, which obviously, as I said, through in terms of the bridging model, then in terms of the smart contract risk, they're not all built differently. Ours are incredibly secure and they're audited consistently. So it is a longer journey to be able to educate people on that.
Beautiful. Richard, thanks so much for taking the time to come and join us. For me, it's always been a very interesting part of the industry just because I'm very much a Bitcoiner, but I've always had an open mind and I've reported widely on all the different protocols. So I think I have a lot better appreciation for what is possible. But I also understand, that a lot of Bitcoiners hold some things very dear, and at times I get a little bit disappointed because I've had the pleasure of meeting Sergio and other people involved in Rootstock, and they're like Bitcoiners at heart. They've done so much to build for Bitcoin, and they're just trying to push the needle and bring more functionality and help Bitcoin be more than it currently is. Even if some people disagree and they think Bitcoin's perfect as it is, we shouldn't be discouraging innovation and trying new things. And it's like difficult to sit on this side of the table when you know that people are working earnestly,
It is, and I think that I think the stat is something like 75% of Bitcoin hasn't moved in the last 12, 18 months, something like that, right? And that's 280 billion sits idle. That's it's great that it is a store of value and a reserve asset, but all of these participants are not trying to pry Bitcoin away from people to do things that are maleficent with it. It is to put it into productive use. So whether that be a digital asset treasury company, then being able to offer something down. I'll finish off here. Rootstock was built out of Latin America to try and help the people of these regions access financial freedom through Bitcoin for all of the benefits that we have. We have an institutional layer now within Rootstock to provide a capital markets layer that will then provide liquidity and better products for those end users. So our goal is not to try and be a Wall Street kind of product. It is to always bring that back down to that financial freedom so that less than you and I, right? Whoever needs it the most can get a loan on their house because there is something that sits above it that provides that liquidity that's not a P2P network.
Yeah, beautiful. Very, very well said, and very much in line with some of the people we've been having on the show over the last 2 days, bringing it back to why Bitcoin matters. And at the end of the day, those that need it most are using it in developing countries, in the global south, as we would call it. But Richard, thanks so much for taking the time. If you're interested in finding out more about Rootstock, just search Rootstock on X or put it into Google. It'll bring up their website, and you can check out their protocol and what they're doing on Bitcoin. We'll be back with one more interview before we take a lunch break here at BTC Prague. Keep it locked on the Starting Block. We'll be back in a couple of minutes' time. Welcome back to the Starting Block. We're broadcasting live at BTC Prague. It's the final session of our midday session, and then we'll take an hour's break, and then we'll be back with some more big interviews this afternoon. But to finish it off, we've got Alex Lazette. He's the board director at Capital B. And if you don't know what Capital B is, we're going to tell you what it is. Alex, it's good to see you again. I think the last time in person, we were on the main stage at Bitcoin Amsterdam. So here we are at another big Bitcoin conference. It's good to see you again.
Yes, that's the biggest conference. There is no second best conference in Europe. BTC Prague is the one. Congrats to Matthias and Martin.
Yeah.
It's always a great event. And as Europe's first and largest Bitcoin treasury company, it's a great pleasure to be here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we had Martin on the show to start off the live stream yesterday, and I agree with you. Like, absolutely fantastic conference. Bitcoin only. They've built something really special here, and like the Czech Republic, Prague has been home to some amazing, Bitcoin companies, Brains, Trezor, a couple of other really, really big companies that have, done so much for Bitcoin. So it's great to be here. For those in our audience that don't know much about Capital B and yourself, can you give us a quick TLDR of what Capital B is and how you guys got into the Bitcoin treasury space and what the journey's been like? Because it's just over a year now that you've been going, and it's been special, to say the least.
So Capital B is Europe's first and largest Bitcoin treasury company. We are a listed company on Euronext Growth Paris. And we've been formed after Strategy in the US, the first and largest one in the world, Metaplanet in Japan. And we were the third in the world in November 2024. We are a group of Bitcoin maximalists and capital market experts, and Bitcoin pioneers as backers like Adam Back, Fulgur Ventures, Berkshire Capital Partners, UTXO Management, Tobam. And our role is to bring Bitcoin into the traditional capital markets and to bring the traditional capital markets to Bitcoin. And we've raised 300 million euros over 1 year and a half. Yeah. And our role is really to transform Bitcoin into securities that can be accessed by traditional finance, that bring in economical capital into Bitcoin, and that provide different types of exposure to Bitcoin. And we basically contribute to Bitcoin adoption in that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's fair to say that most Bitcoin treasury companies have pushed the needle in adoption, and especially Saylor in the United States, and being a big advocate for Bitcoin. But let's just talk about the European context, and obviously Capital B being the first to market here, year and a half in the game. Can you tell us about your Bitcoin holdings and maybe the advantage of being the first mover in Europe while other companies have been trying to play catch up and launch Bitcoin treasury companies in Europe, and how you see that playing out?
Well, over the last 4 years, Bitcoin has emerged as digital capital, as Michael Saylor likes to call it, and which it is accepted within the traditional finance space as the winning asset in the digital era.
Yeah.
And the first application has been the digital equity, Bitcoin-backed equity. Mm-hmm. So Strategy, Metaplanet, Capital B, Strive, Smarter Web, and so on.
Yeah.
And now you've had as well another wave, which is the Bitcoin-backed credit instruments. First as a non-listed, non-accessible product with the convertible notes, and with different types of credit instruments that are reserved for institutions.
Yeah.
And now, as you can see, with the digital credit products that Strategy and Strive have launched, which are effectively providing 2-digit performance with lower than 2-digit volatility, which is by definition transformative for the traditional finance, because 99% of the world wants double-digit performance and low volatility, and only Bitcoin companies can provide for that sustained performance over time. The risk is clear. Bitcoin goes to zero, that is the risk. You can attribute the percentage you want.
Yeah.
We believe it's close to zero, but everybody can do its own analysis.
Yeah.
If you do your own analysis, you might come up with the realization that Bitcoin is in fact headed to digital gold and much more than that. And gold today is the unquestionable asset in the traditional world.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is becoming, it's a project, but it's becoming the unquestionable asset.
Yeah.
in the digital finance. And as a Bitcoin treasury company, we capitalize on that asset. And in Europe, there is no such thing as a Bitcoin treasury company with size, with institutional participation, with retail participation, with liquidity, other than Capital B. So our role, our responsibility is to provide for a solution in Europe which is crippled by high taxes, crippled by security issues, crippled by old, unadapted regulation for the digital era.
Yeah.
And what Capital B can provide is the potential, hopefully, but we are working every day for it,
Yeah.
the potential as well for the digital credit potential over in Europe.
Yeah.
Today we have 3,000 Bitcoin plus on our balance sheet, and we have no fiat leverage today on our Bitcoin treasury company strategy. So it is a major opportunity for us to go into the space, potentially, of the strategy and the strive with STRC and SATA
Yeah.
in a way that could be adapted to Europe, but that is the big opportunity we see. That is our laser focus.
Yeah.
It's to provide a digital credit instrument adapted to Europe that could really change the configuration of the markets.
Yeah, we had Ben Workman from Strive starting the live stream earlier today, and he was talking about the difference between Strategy's approach, Strive's approach, the difference between STRC and SATA, and their daily dividend payouts and how that's going to change the way that instrument works, and the potential for Saylor kind of following suit and maybe taking STRC to a daily dividend payout as well, because at the moment now he's just taken it to a bi-monthly payout, right? How far along would you be in launching a very similar offering through Capital B? Is it in the works? What kind of perhaps things are standing in the way of you launching a digital credit instrument in the mold of STRC and SATA?
Yeah. I think it's important to take a step back, because in the Bitcoin community on X, there is a big debate on what is happening in a Bitcoin treasury company to be able to provide a double-digit dividend interest every year.
And Saylor was asked this week, right?
You know
on
what
stage.
is happening? Fiat money inflation.
Yeah.
And you can take any period over the last 100 years, any period, wars, oil shocks, conflicts with the Middle East, internet bubble, great financial crisis, pick the crisis.
Yeah.
What happened after each and every of them? More monetary inflation, more debt creation by the state, monetary devaluation, and the obligations of payments of Strategy, of Strive, the promise of payment with the dividends, and if you would take that with other instruments, it would be the same, but that's the potential capacity to provide for a double-digit performance is because those companies, Bitcoin treasury companies focused on digital credit, have the money.
Yeah.
They already have the capital on their balance sheet. And in the traditional finance world, if you were to take an obligation to pay double-digit performance, you would have to promise that you will generate 40 years, 50 years of cash flows that will be double-digit.
Yeah.
In the Bitcoin world, the Bitcoin treasury company already have 40, 50 years of cash flows on their balance sheet today.
Yeah.
So that asset they have on the balance sheet is growing at 30 to 60% annually. Even if it would grow to 2% or 3%, Strive and Strategy could pay the dividends forever.
And that's why it's a perpetual.
So it's like I keep getting the question, where does the yield come from? The yield is pre-financed by the balance sheet of the company.
Yeah.
And the objective of the company is to accumulate more Bitcoin and to, yes, you can have to sell Bitcoin to pay dividends or to pay your obligations. What matters is that you will accumulate more over time. And when Strategy sells 32, they buy 1,500. It's the same to buy 9 Bitcoin than to buy than to sell one and buy 10. It's the same. It's the
Precisely.
same. So it's basic corporate finance. The point is 50% of the Bitcoin community doesn't want to touch fiat, the fiat world, the fiat finance world.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But the point is 97% of the world's capital is in traditional finance.
Yeah.
So if you want the purchasing power of Bitcoin to go up over time, you better be on the side of adoption of Bitcoin, whatever the type of actor adopts Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And in fact, you cannot stop internet adoption,
No.
and you cannot stop Bitcoin adoption.
No, you can't.
So this institutional adoption is inevitable, and the way to do it at scale is actually to provide Bitcoin-backed credit instruments. And so when you look at Strategy and Strive and their success in the market, what you see is that you have two major success stories. One is a company that is transforming a balance sheet of Bitcoin into a Bitcoin accumulation machine
Yeah.
that's at a scale that could become one of the Magnificent Eight, if not above the Magnificent Eight. And the other one, Strive, is providing the view that you can have a very successful launch of a digital credit product while having a 40x smaller balance sheet. You can have 1/4 or 1/5 or sometimes 1/3 of the volumes of STRC. And what that shows is that there is a massive demand in the market. Today, at Capital B, we see 10x the number of investors that are more interested in the digital credit space that we saw last year. Last year, it was a big demand, but a small group of investors. And now, there is a big asymmetry of information between 90% of the market that thinks that Bitcoin treasury companies are dead. It's funny. You have Bitcoiners thinking that Bitcoin treasury companies are dead while they hold Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Any company that holds Bitcoin will win compared with companies that don't hold Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And Bitcoiners focusing on the Bitcoin treasury companies to criticize fiat should look at the fiat companies and criticize them for not having Bitcoin, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And so that's my view. The view is this is the most adopted credit instrument in history.
Yeah.
So at least you should get some curiosity.
Yeah.
And you don't have to buy it. That's
No.
the good news, you know? You can, if you don't trust anybody, you buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And guess what? The digital credit issuers, what they will do? They will buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So we are on the same team. And I hope that the message can diffuse.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that you're so convicted and passionate about that, because in the last 2 weeks that's been it, right? Like a lot of question marks, like a lot of people worrying, Saylor sold Bitcoin, is this a bad thing? We had Jack Mallers here on the live stream yesterday, and he was just saying that he wonders if we're maybe getting too complicated with the different products that are being built, and maybe the model that Saylor had with MicroStrategy 4 years ago was better suited to what this is, and it's getting, if you have 5 or 6 products on the capital stack, you end up just balancing all the time, like, do I sell Bitcoin or do I dilute shareholders in order to pay the dividend? And we should ask these questions, but at the same time, I don't think that Bitcoin treasury companies are dead. I don't think they're going to die. I think the ones that aren't run well might not have a great future, but the ones that are run well will be fine. And what Michael Saylor has done is super innovative, and no one else has done it before, and it's working. And the sale of 32 Bitcoin last week was a signal to the market, and many people have said this. Ben Workman said it earlier today, that it was a signal to the market that we can do this, and it's actually not really going to impact the price of Bitcoin at all. And this is how it will work, and it can work, and it doesn't break things. So it's interesting to see it play out in real time, because the truth is most people are skeptical. The instruments themselves are complicated, and no one knows what the actual answer is. But just in terms of what you want to build in the next year or so, is it going to be a more complicated capital stack for Capital B? What have you got in the pipeline that you can talk about? And I'm sure you can not talk about some things.
I think there are two important things on what you mentioned first.
Go ahead.
The first one, which is interesting, is that actually Strike is in the same business sector as Strategy.
Yeah.
Bitcoin-backed credit
Yes.
on different sides of the business, but this is a proof that even if there is a debate, the two companies are focused on Bitcoin-backed
Loans.
credit
Yeah.
or Bitcoin-backed loans.
Yeah.
This is everything of this is Bitcoin-backed credit.
Yes.
You see?
Yeah.
So you either are the person that gives the loan, or you're even the person that takes the cash and buy the Bitcoin.
Yes.
If you are a Bitcoin bull, you better be on the side of taking the cash and buying the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what you do if you're a rational investor. But in the traditional world, if you wanted to take leverage, you would take a liquidation risk,
Yes.
or you would take a margin risk at least, or liquidity risk. You see?
Yeah.
Or you would take as well some kind of additional counterparty risk because you will have to trust a company that would accept to do something very tailored to you. What Strategy is doing is a dream come true for every Bitcoiner that also understands corporate finance,
Yeah.
because you can do something that is not the first time that is done. You can do something that has already been done in the past with gold, and those became the Bank of England and the Bank of France, issuing credit on top of gold.
Yeah.
It's not a new business model.
Not at all. No.
It's a credit business. And when I hear, no, I'm focused on cash flows, my point is the digital credit business is a business.
Yeah.
You are providing Bitcoin-backed credit.
Yeah.
And yes, there are perpetual instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are risks. The risk is Bitcoin goes to zero. Okay? It's Bitcoin-backed credit, Bitcoin-backed credit. So
Yeah.
if it goes to zero, that is the risk.
Then we have a problem.
And there is a counterparty risk because the entity, the corporate entity, the public company is an entity. So of course there is counterparty risk there.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you evaluate the different counterparty risks, you compare. I'm an economist by training.
Yeah.
And one thing you learn is you need to compare things to appreciate them.
Yeah.
And you have credit risk everywhere in the world. In fact, if you self-custody Bitcoin, you take your own risk,
Yes.
but it doesn't eliminate the risk. You take custody of the risk. You see?
Yes.
You became your own bank.
Yes.
You are the counterparty risk to yourself, okay? So the point is 97% of the population want to use banks. And 3% of the population don't want to trust anybody.
Yeah.
And as Bitcoin maximalists, we will remind everybody all the time, if you don't want to trust anybody, buy Bitcoin, hold it in cold storage,
Yeah.
but the condition is to be anonymous.
Yes.
That's the point. And that's why, even if I have an orange tie, I have a suit, I work for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because I've chosen the line on which I can contribute the most.
Yeah.
I'm not a developer. And I know that there are developers in the Bitcoin ecosystem that do the hard work to develop the self-custody, Bitcoin technology routes, to make sure that all the time that we work on the Bitcoin adoption and we accompany it, you do have always solutions for self-custody and peer-to-peer transactions and so on.
Yeah.
But the point is, everybody has to focus on what he knows how to do it.
Yeah.
And my view is, all of this is contributing to Bitcoin adoption.
Yeah.
And to your point on Capital B, well, Capital B is the largest corporate holder in public markets in Europe.
Yeah.
Europe is the second largest credit market in the world. France is the first capital market in Europe. It's 40% of all of it. We have the largest investment banks. We have the most progressive authorities. We have 30,000 shareholders,
Yeah.
50 plus institutions, record volumes every day compared with other companies in the sector. And our focus is to issue digital credits over in Europe. There is no certainty until it's done, but that is our full focus. And of course, there are risks. Of course, there is risk of execution, there is risk of custody, but we work only with regulated banks. We have a team of capital market banking, technology, corporate finance experts. We are backed by Bitcoin pioneers. We are Bitcoin maximalists in the traditional financial system. And you win the progression of Bitcoin adoption by doing the work.
Yeah.
We are providing the proof of work in traditional capital market as much as we can
Yeah.
with the help of God. And that's our focus,
Yeah.
to contribute to Bitcoin adoption. And I think if all of your decisions in life are towards doing good for you, your family, society, the world, and I've discovered that the best way to do that is to focus on working for Bitcoin adoption.
Yeah.
And all of my decisions in life are how to contribute more to Bitcoin adoption. And the best way to do it, in my view, is to have Europe's first and largest Bitcoin treasury company to move towards digital credit in Europe, because that is the perpetual way to build a Bitcoin accumulation machine. You remove the maturity dates, you reduce the risks, and you maximize the product market fit, because 99% of people, they want double-digit performance and lower that two-digit volatility. And so that's the demand in the market, and that is additive to Bitcoin, not replacement for Bitcoin.
Yeah, and just to add my thoughts on that as well, I think it's important for everyone to remember why we believe in Bitcoin and what Bitcoin is, and to launch like credit instruments that are backed by Bitcoin is the whole point, right? Because the entire fiat monetary system is based on issuing credit or issuing money that is not backed by anything. And when we had a gold standard, at least there was proof of work involved in issuing money. It was backed by something tangible, and that's exactly what we're doing now. But we're doing it with the best asset that man has, in my own belief. And that is Bitcoin. Alex, it's great to talk to you. I love how passionate you are about Bitcoin and also about this new space, right? Because it's taken a lot of Bitcoiners a lot of time to understand and come to terms with what these companies are doing. But I genuinely believe that they are good for Bitcoin in the long term. It's good to be skeptical, and to the skeptics out there, we should be asking questions.
It's healthy, yes.
But it's also... people aren't just going out there and building things that can very easily break. There's been a lot of thought and a lot of things taken from the right way of doing things. So we appreciate your time. If you're interested in learning more about Capital B, just search for them on X or put it in Google. If you don't follow Alexandre Lizette, you can find him on X as well. Give him a follow. And if you're enjoying the live stream, please like and retweet. We are going to take a short break now for an hour, but we will be back this afternoon with a couple more big interviews. So keep it locked on the Block socials. Take a look at BTC Prague on X as well if you want to see some photos or videos from some of the big panels here at the conference, because we're not broadcasting those, we're just doing the live desk. So these are special interviews that we're doing here at the conference. But we'll take a short break. We'll see you back here in an hour.